what's this? Makar narrating a completely normal competitive OU match. Yeah, I have some confidence in my speaking abilities right now because not an hour ago, yeah, just about an hour ago, I gave a pretty good presentation on trading blocks in my business class. I did pretty well. But mainly because I think this battle is a great chance to narrate. I don't know what it is, but I think I'd just rather narrate this than narrate it. I don't know what it is, but just looking at the battle, that's how I feel. So it's against Tubes. And I think right now, after like 3 or 4 days after the battle, I think it was just wonderful. It really made me think about the nature of stall wars in general. So obviously we're going to see one of those. And it made me think about Tyranitar on my team, because I do bring him instead of Dragonite, which is normally my preferred, wall breaker, game changer offensive guy. But I brought T-Tar this game, which means instead of a random assortment of guys, which is more or less what this is, I have to kind of focus it a little more. But, which is not necessarily a good thing. And what T-Tar does, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off between a 6th usable, stall Pokemon, which could be Dragonite. That's absolutely... I'm not saying because he's offensive, you can't use him in a stall. Like, I use Dragonite in stally battles all the time, even when he doesn't make a change, just to sponge a hit, roost it off, because he's got good bulk, good typing, and he can threaten people away. So he can be useful in a stall war when not killing things. T-Tar, on the other hand, more often than not, ends up hurting me more than the opponent. I don't use as many steel types as is standard. So I ends up helping my opponent, if anything. But on the other hand, in a stall war, or if he's just kind of looking for a foothold, as is the case with that battle against Super Mario from Maryland, OU51, T-Tar can just end the game pretty much at will. If he gets a chance to set up, and I've scouted enough, I know his team, and I know what he can and can't do to stop T-Tar, good luck stopping him. He's a force to be reckoned with. If he gets the chance to set up, and I've done my job in clearing his team out beforehand, you don't stop him, and he wins the game for me. Which I think is a very captivating trade-off between an extra tool for stall, and a wild card to end the game. Typically, I pick the extra stall poke just because reliability. It's easier to plan around stopping an entire metagame with 4 pokes than it is with 3. Because there's just more you can do with each person. Like is the case with Skarmory and Gliscor in that winter team. If I cut down Gliscor to make room for another offensive poke, sure, I would have at times just the game's over because I brought this guy in, but other times I just wouldn't be able to stand up to the hits, and I just wouldn't be able to live enough people. That's enormously the case versus Cooper, because I lost Skarmory early on. Plus, he had a Magnezone, so it's not like I could have used Skarm anyway. So Gliscor ended up being instrumental in that win, because I used that extra team slot instead of something to potentially win a couple extra games to take hits. Now, on the other hand, look at the game versus I Am the tie. If I had replaced Gliscor with, say, some type of Scarfer that can kill Gyarados, I'm not saying I win the game, but I don't lose 5-0 like I did, and it would certainly be a much more competitive game, because Gliscor, he toxic Gyarados, and he's the reason I didn't get swept outright, but he didn't do that much. So Tyranitar brings a very interesting change, and I think that's enough discussion about that. I think it's about time to delve into the battle. I just didn't want to start saying that over the battle and then digress and not know what I was talking about. So anyway, enjoy the battle. It's very interesting. We'll put it that way. As is fairly typical these days, I'm going to lead with good old Hermes, as Tubes himself called him. And I also have Skarm, Gliscor, T-Tar, of course, Starmie, and Gastrodon. And Tubes is going to lead with a Sudowoodo, which is very perplexing. Obviously, Crobat isn't the greatest matchup. I don't know if he can Stealth Rock, but I don't think he can. So I'm going to get out of there. I'm just going to U-turn. Scarm, I always feel, is better early game. Gliscor, as a platoon with Scarm, he's just better to keep hidden if I need him as backup, or if there's something where he just makes a better matchup. Sometimes Flygon's the case because of Fire Blast. Sometimes Sizer because of Superpower. So I like to keep them I like to go to Scar more early game. Scout for spikes. There I switch out. It's just getting tricky. There's Respect My Authority. Just don't try to make any silly moves on me because I will read you. Maybe he has a Magnezone. Maybe he has something to beat Scarm that Starmie can handle. And Surf does a very good chunk. He gets Stealth Rock first, which immediately I'm counting his moves. He's going to have Rapid Spin. He has Stealth Rock. So does he have 2 attacks? Does he have 2 more hazards? Does he have spikes at all? I don't know, but at this point, I'm going to guess Stealth Rock is his only hazard. Because typically when I see Fortress, it's their only hazard. And Snorlax is not a threat, but I absolutely want to find out his ability ASAP. And the only way to do that is to use Toxic on him because I don't have any Fire or Ice moves on this team. Aside from Gastrodon's Ice Beam, which I guess could show the difference. And Fortress into Starmie happens, and I'm going to try to kill Fortress. I don't want to Rapid Spin and let him win the Hazard War because I can recover and he can't. So if I get his HP low and I don't care if I trade Stealth Rock, I can kill Fortress, which is going to win the Hazard War in the long run, of course. And then he makes, I believe, the first of many double switches in this going into Fortress. And as I kind of realized that with him throwing hazards up constantly, I'm not going to win this quickly. And this is where our Star War really sets in. And I guess because there isn't too much thought, I guess there's some prediction of Surfs, some prediction of Snorlaxes at some point, but ultimately also I'm trying to find out how much attack Snorlax has because I can live a crunch. It's just a matter of how much I can live with. If he's min attack, I can recover and actually gain HP. If he's max attack, obviously I won't live with too much. And of course he does have crunch. He doesn't have Fire Punch or Earthquake where I can easily sit in there. But anyway, Star Wars, as I have come to realize, typically end in one of a few ways. One, my opponent gets impatient, and I win that way. They make some jumpy move before they should have. They didn't have the right opportunity. They tried to force something, and I beat them as a consequence. There's also where my team is just outright better to last in the long run, as is the case versus Cooper. He was just outmatched, and by me holding my ground, he doesn't really win. And this right here makes an interesting setup because he used Crunch the other 2 times. I don't think he's going to make that prediction 2 times in a row. So I try to sit in there in Toxic, and sure enough, he goes to Infernape, which I will gladly take a Toxic on. But I don't. He's not going to stay in and let me surf him because he's probably going to be his only way to kill Scarm. So I end up switching. I believe I switched to Crobat this time. As tempting as it is to Toxic again, I don't do it. I go to Crobat. He's good against everyone I've seen. He's just not a great switch-in, which is why you haven't seen him again. Anyway, back to my discussion about Star Wars. Another way they can end is for me to get jumpy. For me to do something out of character and try to break the pattern. That's very uncommon. I'm rarely ever going to do that. The way I do lose Star Wars more commonly is when I get lazy and I hold my ground, but I'm stalling instead of trying to win the game. That seems to happen a lot, where they bring in some threat, and me sitting back, being in my reclined position, I'm just not ready to take care of him, and he ends up just pummeling me for it. That's been known to happen against me, and that's something I'll try to avoid. So I basically have to not get. It's about not getting careless in the stall war, but it's about being prepared for other factors. Such is the case with staying in Starmie and Toxicking. I didn't want to go to Scarm because I thought Fortress, but it also just keeps him on his toes in general instead of falling into that pattern. And if you've been paying attention to the battle at all, nothing has happened. No ground has been gained. He has that Infernape at low health. He has Snorlax right there. Not Toxic yet, which I missed a Toxic, which is kind of a big deal to me because now I don't get to see if he's immunity. And I was planning on having a whole big escapade of finding if he's immunity, but at this point, I just kind of guess that he doesn't have it. Meanwhile, he's staying in with Snorlax, which I have no idea why. I guess he's waiting for me to... I guess he's predicting me to set up 3 layers of spikes and then Whirlwind, but I end up Whirlwinding him outright, and he goes into a Sceptile. If I had seen leftovers, I probably would have been afraid of HP Fire, but without lefties, he's not going to kill me. What can he do? And plus, lefties probably means Subseed, so I'd rather just straight up set up spikes on him. And then now he's probably not going to sub. He's probably going to go to Fortress, so I either want to Whirlwind or go to... Oh, is this where I go to... That's right, yep, I go to Starmie. And now he has a choice of Rapid Spinning or... Ew, DCing, jeez. Rapid Spinning or saving his HP. And he lets me get a Surf off, so that puts me in very good position. He does get his Rapid Spin off, but I don't really care about that. He's not going to stay in this time, so I'm going to switch out. I believe I go to... I stayed in. Wow, I stayed in, I guess predicting me to switch out. And so I think I'm doing a very good job of staying on my toes in the stalwart, and I'm not getting lazy. I'm not letting him make big offensive moves to change the game, and then that happens. I tell him it'll be pretty easy to set up. You know, we just pretty much get our guys to lower Fortress's HP, get Infernape Toxic, and then we go from there, because it's 6-6. But he'd rather not. He'd rather start all over, which I'm fine with, and the main reason he gave is PP, which actually is a very valid argument, because it looked like it was heading that way. Once he got Infernape dead, he couldn't kill Skarm, and come on, be real. I'm not going to kill Fortress with probably not with Starmie, because he has Snorlax hanging around. So I just, neither of us were gaining any ground except for carelessness. So it's going to be the same start, except I get a crit, which, you know, he says doesn't matter. You'd take that over some other hacks every day. And I want to start with the same thing, because I haven't revealed Gliscor yet. So I'd rather, I mean, I don't see any problem with what I did last time, so I'd rather just, you know, make the same move, make him show me something new, if anything. Because chances are I'm going to be more patient than him, so why not let him make the moves? And he actually gets really aggressive. He goes to Infernape first turn, which I felt was very risky because Fortress was so predictable. I was thinking about going to Starmie, but hey, good move. And I go to Crobat because Starmie is extremely obvious. He could Grass Knot, he could U-turn, both of which Hermes resists 4 times. Grass Knot I'm not too worried about on Starmie because it lives and then it gets a couple turns for leftovers, but U-turn would do a lot of damage and he would get switch advantage, which is not good at all. So that's why I went to Crobat, and I mean he's not going to stay in if Infernape's his only thing to kill Skarm, and I have Skarm. So I wanted to Roost as he switched, and turns out it worked perfectly. He makes a very inventive play, very creative there. I thought that was really neat. I was thinking about Starmie. I really was, but I didn't want to get hammered with a Stone Edge, let alone a Wood Hammer. And Fortress is, come on, that's pretty obvious there. So I wind him out, and he goes to Ape, which is pretty lame because, but he does get Spikes damage. I'm gonna do the same thing because I'm at full health. You know, why not? And he goes into Fortress. I'm okay with him getting a Rapid Spin, but I'd rather not have him set up Stealth Rocks, just because that lets us fall into the same lull of Starmie, Snorlax, Skarm, and Fori. And then I Brave Bird, I'm just trying to find out what moves he has. I get a crit, and he has Earthquake. Awesome play for me. That was enormous. But that crit was really lame. I would probably just sit in there and Brave Bird. If he's going to explode, I'll trade Crobat for Fortress at this point. In this game, if he has Gyro Ball, I can stall him out. He's not going to do too much damage to Crobat. If he has Payback, you got to be kidding me, that's going to do nothing. So that was a very winning battle for me, and it would have forced him to switch into something that couldn't take a Brave Bird, because he had essentially nothing to handle a Brave Bird. So I was in a very winning position, but I decided to switch out to U-turn out, partially because I thought he would switch, partially because I didn't want to kill him lamely. And I know another Brave Bird isn't going to kill him, so I don't want him to die with Stealth Rocks up, so I go to Starmie. And at this point, I think he's just going to leave Fortress for dead, so I do have to Surf, but it forces him to go into something less advantageous. If I was still into Scarm, he could bring in Infernape for free, but now he has to bring in either Snorlax or Sceptile, neither of which are exactly favorable. I'm going to go to Crobat first so I can taunt him. I don't want Scarm's HP to get drained away slowly. And sure enough, he goes for Leech Seed off the taunt. And I'd love to see what he has. Does he have Rock Slide? He'd probably go for it that last turn, but I'm not going to... I kind of thought... I mean, I knew he wouldn't switch, but the thought was in the back of my mind. So I go to Scarm, and he Leaf Blades for nothing. And as much as I want to start winning the Hazard War, he's not going to sit there and let me do that. So who's he going to switch to? The one guy who can kill Scarm, and a guy who's not exactly resistant to Brave Bird. So right there, the table, I mean, I'm winning this battle. Like, what can you do to kill Scarm? And if it can kill Scarm, can it kill anybody else? So I have to feel that was set up by the crit, though, because Fortress otherwise could just waltz all over Scarm. So I definitely feel that was very lame, but that was a very good play by me, Brave Birding on that turn here Earthquake. He goes to Slowbro, and I see instantly, this is T-Tar's chance. He has Fortress. I should have mentioned that earlier. Fortress was the only reason T-Tar wasn't a huge threat against his team earlier. And I actually find out he's not immunity. But T-Tar was the only reason that I couldn't just utterly sweep his entire team. Or Fortress was the only reason. And now that Fortress is gone, who does he have to stop me? He has Slowbro, who actually I can set up on. He has Snorlax, give me a break. Sudowoodo's not going to stop him. Sceptile would be faster after +1, but I don't see him getting in there when I'm at +1. Plus, he couldn't kill me. So at this point, I'm just figuring out a way to get T-Tar to +2 and start sweeping. My intention is to force a rest and then bring him in on one of the turns of sleep. Then he'll probably stay in for a turn, maybe go out to I don't know who else, but stay in for one turn, and I get one dance up, and then he tries to stop me, and just it's over from there. He has no one to resist either of my stabs, let alone both. So it's a bit of a tango now between Starmie, Scarm, Slowbro, and Starmie, and Snorlax, because he's trying to waste my Toxic PP at this point, which is, it's kind of a futile battle for him, but eventually he does rest. And I realize that, I'd rather not. I could get as many layers of spikes as I want, which I start doing now. I start, if he's going to switch back and forth, I'm going to make him pay for it. So that if he keeps switching back and forth, I win instead of just running out of PP. But instantly, this just becomes a matter of, how do I get T-Tar set up? How do I do it the quickest? And at this point, I could have gone to Scarm and set up 3 layers of spikes, but one Stealth Rock would be better than the second layer of spikes, because it gives me an extra 12.5% instead of the extra, I think it's, what is it, 1/8, and then, a 6, so it would give me, I guess, an extra 4% from getting more spikes, which I don't really care about. I'd rather have the Stealth Rocks. And then obviously I go to Crobat. He can't touch me. He's gonna Leaf Blade for petty damage. And in case he has Earthquake, obviously he's not gonna have Rock Slide. But in case he has Earthquake, I don't want to Roost. I decide to Brave Bird, and next turn I can kill him or threaten him out. And he actually has Focus Punch, which is really interesting. But that's really the end of the game. He just has nothing to do. He has absolutely what can he do to me? Crobat's at full health. T-Tar's out there. He can't stop me. He's going to run with... I'm not going to get a chance to sweep with T-Tar, but that was a great game. Very interesting. Thanks for playing. Thanks for watching.